My name is Emily Rivers, 30 years old, and I'll never forget the moment I realized I wasn't even welcome at my own sister's wedding. It was a Friday afternoon, the day before the wedding. I drove to the venue, expecting to be part of the final touches before the big day. But when I arrived, there, standing at the entrance with a fake smile on her face, was my sister Claire. The moment she saw me, her smile faded. She looked past me toward the crowd of guests nearby and said, "Hey, can you sit in the back during the wedding? We're keeping it small, you know. Don't want things to get awkward." At first, I thought it was a joke. I mean, we grew up together, shared a room for years. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized this wasn't some silly request from my little sister. She was serious. The sister I always protected, the one who'd come to me for help with her problems, now wanted me to sit outside at her wedding. My vision blurred as the anger surged. It wasn't just about the wedding. It was everything. The years of being the forgotten one in the family, the achievements never recognized, the silent resentment that had slowly turned into frustration between us. But this was the last straw. So I did what I should have done a long time ago. I walked away. And as I packed my things, I grabbed the wedding fund my parents had been holding for months. Because if they thought I was going to sit outside, they might as well know what it feels like to be left out. I didn't just leave. I took the money. And the next morning, the panic set in. Claire and my parents were in full meltdown mode when they realized the wedding couldn't go ahead without that fund. The wedding would happen without me, but it sure as hell wasn't going to happen with my money. As I drove away from the wedding venue, my hands trembled on the steering wheel. My phone started ringing incessantly. Mom, Dad, Claire. I didn't answer. Not this time. Everything that led to this moment wasn't random. It had been accumulating over 30 years of living in the shadow of a younger sister who was always favored. Claire was the perfect child, beautiful, charming, always knowing how to make everyone smile. And me? I was the responsible one, the hardworking one, the one who never caused trouble. But in this family, that meant I was invisible. I remember when I was 12, winning a full scholarship to a prestigious high school. Mom just nodded and said, "That's great, Emily, but can you help me prepare dinner? Claire is busy with ballet practice." No celebration, no special praise, just another task to complete. 3 years later, when Claire was chosen as the host for the school's art show, a role she didn't even try for, the whole family threw a celebration at her favorite restaurant. Mom took endless photos. Dad proudly told everyone he met. And I sat in the corner of the table trying to smile as Claire chatted about how famous she was going to be. When I went to college, I worked 3 part-time jobs to cover expenses. My parents said they'd already supported me enough with the scholarship, and they needed to save for Claire's future. I didn't complain. I just worked harder. I graduated with honors in business, landed a good job at a major consulting firm, but on graduation day, my parents arrived 30 minutes late because Claire needed them to drive her to buy a dress for prom. I'd learned to accept my place in the family, the reliable eldest daughter, always there when needed, but never the center of any story. I told myself I didn't need recognition, but deep down, a part of me was dying a little each time they forgot my birthday, but threw surprise parties for Claire. Each time they asked if I could lend Claire money because she's going through a rough patch, while I'd just taken a pay cut myself. And now, even at my own sister's wedding, an event I'd spent 6 months helping plan, arranging vendors, and even contributing a significant portion to the cost, I still wasn't good enough to sit inside. My phone rang again. This time, a text from Mom. "Emily, where are you? We need to talk right now. You can't take that money." I looked at the message and laughed bitterly. Now they wanted to talk. Now they realized I existed. I didn't go home immediately. Instead, I drove to my apartment. the small place I'd bought with my own money, without anyone's help. I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on the balcony, looking out at the city. For the first time in years, I felt relief. Like a massive weight had just been lifted from my shoulders. My phone rang frantically. 21 missed calls, 17 messages. I read through them, one by one. Claire, 4:32 p.m. What are you doing? My wedding is about to start. Mom, 4:45 p.m. Emily Rivers, listen to me. This is not a joke. Return that money immediately. Dad, 5:03 p.m. Sweetheart, I don't understand what you're thinking. We need to meet and sort this out. Claire, 5:15 p.m. You know what? I was wrong to tell you to sit outside, but you can't ruin my big day like this. I typed a response to Claire. My fingers moved quickly across the keyboard. Me. How many of my days have you ruined? Ever counted? Because I have. And now I'm tired. 3 dots appeared immediately, showing Claire was typing. Then, they disappeared. Then appeared again. Finally, a new message. Claire. You're so selfish. You've always been jealous of me, and now you're sabotaging the happiest day of my life. I read that message 3 times, feeling anger rise in my chest. Selfish. Jealous. Those words stabbed like knives into my heart. But then I realized something. Claire actually believed that. She actually thought I was doing this out of jealousy. She had no idea how lucky she was, that she lived in a world where everything was handed to her, where love and attention were a given. She never had to fight to be seen, never had to prove her worth. And now, when I finally stood up for myself, she called me selfish. Me. You're right. I am selfish. Because for 30 years, I haven't been selfish enough. I turned off my phone. 2 days later, Mom showed up at my apartment door. I saw her through the peephole, face tense, eyes red. I knew I shouldn't open the door, but a part of me, the part that was still the obedient daughter, wanted to hear what she had to say. I opened the door. "Can I come in?" she asked, her tone softer than I expected. I stepped aside to let her in. We sat facing each other in the living room. Mom looked around the apartment, her eyes stopping at the picture frames on the shelf. All photos of me with friends, not a single one with family. "What did you do with the money?" Mom asked, cutting straight to the point. "It's somewhere safe," I replied. "And I'll return it when Claire and this family acknowledge what I've done for them." Mom sighed. "Emily, you know your father and I have always loved you." "No," I interrupted. "You and Dad have always loved the idea of a compliant eldest daughter who does what you want without complaining, but you never actually saw me. Can you tell me about my 25th birthday? Where did I celebrate?" Mom was silent. "I didn't celebrate," I continued, my voice trembling. "Because that day, you called me to help Claire move into her new apartment. And when I mentioned it was my birthday, you said, 'Oh yes, we'll celebrate next weekend.' But next weekend never came, did it? Because Claire had another crisis, and I was the one who had to drop everything to help." Mom looked down at her hands. "Do you know what it's like raising 2 such different children? Claire needed more. Claire needed more." I laughed bitterly. "Or Claire wanted more, and you allowed it?" "I needed 2, Mom. I also wanted to be seen, to be celebrated, to be loved without having to earn it. But in this family, love is conditional, and the condition is that I must be invisible." "You're not being fair," Mom began. "Not fair?" My voice rose. "You want to talk about fair? Okay. When I asked you and Dad to help with the down payment for this apartment, you said you didn't have money. 6 months later, you bought Claire a new car. When I asked about it, Dad said, 'Your sister needs it for work.' Claire worked part-time at a clothing store, and I was working 60 hours a week at a consulting firm. Who needed a car more? Mom stood up, tears streaming down her face. I didn't come here to argue with you. I came to ask you to do the right thing. Claire has canceled the wedding because there's no money to pay for the venue and vendors. You're destroying your sister's life. I stood up, looking her straight in the eye. No, Mom. I'm not destroying anything. I'm just done letting myself be destroyed. That night at 11 o'clock, Claire called. I was about to ignore it, but the fifth call annoyed me so much that I picked up. What do you want? I asked coldly. I want you to know that I just had to explain to John, my fiancé, why the wedding was canceled. He's furious. His family thinks our family has problems. And they're right, because you've made our family a problem. I laughed softly. Claire, do you realize you've never apologized to me? Not about asking me to sit outside the wedding, not about 30 years of being treated like a princess while I was just the servant. What do you want me to apologize for? Claire shouted. For being loved by our parents? For having a good life? It's not my fault if you feel inadequate. You're right, I said quietly. It's not your fault. But the way you've treated me, like I owe you everything, like my presence is an inconvenience, that's on you. And I'm tired of pretending it doesn't hurt. Silence stretched from the other end. Then Claire said, her voice shaking, I didn't know you felt that way. Because you never asked, I replied. No one in this family asks. Everyone just assumes I'm fine, that I'm strong, that I don't need anything. But even the strongest person needs to be loved, Claire. And I haven't received that from this family for a very, very long time. So what do you want now? Claire asked, her voice tired. Do you want me to beg? Do you want me to crawl and ask for your forgiveness? I want you to acknowledge the truth, I said. That this family has treated me like garbage, that you've benefited from that. And that when I finally stood up for myself, you have no right to call me evil. A long sigh came from the other end. I can't give you that. Then you can't have that wedding money. I hung up. 3 days after the incident, Dad met me at a coffee shop near my office. He sat across from me, wearing the suit he always wore when he wanted to appear serious. But this time, I wasn't impressed. What do you think you're doing? He asked. No greeting, no pleasantries. I think I'm demanding the respect I deserve, I replied, taking a sip of coffee. By stealing family money? By ruining your sister's wedding? That money isn't just the family's, Dad. A third of it is from my savings that I contributed to the fund. I have as much right to it as anyone else. Dad sighed, rubbing his face. Emily, you and I have always been alike. We're practical. We're tough. But this? This is childish. No, Dad, I said, looking straight into his eyes. Childish is when I steal money because I want to buy something for myself. But I took that money to send a message that I will no longer be treated as a second-class citizen in this family. No one treats you that way. Do you remember my graduation? I interrupted. When you and Mom were 30 minutes late? Dad hesitated. That was because Claire needed to go dress shopping. I know. But do you know how I felt standing there, searching for you in the crowd and realizing that once again, Claire was more important than me? Dad was silent. Or when I got promoted to project director, I continued. I called to tell you and Mom said, "That's wonderful, honey." Then immediately started telling me about Claire getting invited to the Bahamas with her new boyfriend. No questions about my work. No real congratulations. Just, good for you. Now listen about Claire. Dad looked down at his coffee. I didn't realize. Exactly, I said, my voice softer but still firm. You didn't realize. Because in this family, I'm invisible. I'm the one who's always okay, always strong, always doesn't need anything. But you know what? I do need. I need to be seen. I need to be loved without having to earn it. And I'm tired of pretending I don't. Dad looked up at me, eyes red. So what do you want me to do? I want you to acknowledge the truth. That you and Mom favored Claire. That you hurt me. And that if you want me back in this family, things have to change. You can't demand the family change just because you feel hurt, Dad said. Then I won't come back. I stood up, grabbing my purse. I deserve better than that. Over the next month, my life changed in ways I didn't expect. No more daily phone calls from Mom about what Claire needed help with. No more weekend texts about family dinners where I'd feel like an outsider again. No more pressure to always be available, always helpful, always the version of Emily they wanted. I started spending time with friends, people who actually cared about my life, asked about my day, celebrated my small victories. I joined a painting class I'd wanted to try for years but never had time for because I was always busy helping Claire. I traveled alone to a city I'd always wanted to explore, and for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. The wedding fund remained in my account. I didn't spend it. I just kept it there, as a reminder that I had power, that I had value, that I was no longer the invisible daughter. But one Friday evening, as I was preparing for dinner with friends, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Claire standing there. She looked different. Hair tied back, no makeup, eyes swollen. No longer the beautiful princess I'd grown up with, but a tired and desperate woman. "Can we talk?" she asked quietly. I stepped aside to let her in. We sat in silence for several minutes. Claire looked around the apartment, her eyes stopping at the paintings I'd recently done hanging on the wall. "You painted these?" she asked. "Yes," I replied. "Did you know I like to paint?" Claire shook her head. "I didn't know. Because you never asked." She nodded, tears streaming down. "You're right. I never asked. I never really saw you." I didn't say anything, just waited. "John called off the engagement," Claire said, her voice trembling. "He said I'm too selfish, that I don't know how to handle relationships. And when I argued, he asked me about you. He asked why I treated you the way I did, and I had no answer. I just knew that. That's how our family always worked. You were always there, always helping, and I took it for granted." I felt something soften in my chest, but I kept my voice steady. "And now you've lost everything? So you came here to apologize?" Claire looked up, eyes red. "No, I mean, yes, I came to apologize, but not because I lost John. I came because I finally understand. He told me to reread all the texts between you and me from the past year. Every time I texted you, it was because I needed something. Money, advice, someone to listen to me complain. But you know how many times I asked you a question about your life?" I waited. "Not once," Claire whispered. "Not a single time in 2 years. I don't even know if you have a boyfriend. Don't know what you like to do on weekends. Don't know what you're going through at work. I only knew that when I called, you'd answer. And I thought that was sisterhood. But it wasn't. It was just me using you." I felt tears welling up, but I held them back. "Do you know how much that hurt me?" "I know now," Claire said, wiping her tears. "And I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry for making you feel invisible, for treating you like a shadow, for never fighting for you when Mom and Dad treated you unfairly." "Why didn't you?" I asked, my voice breaking. "I always protected you. When kids at school bullied you, I stood up for you. When you failed an exam, I stayed up all night helping you study. But when Mom and Dad forgot my birthday, when they missed my important events, where were you?" Claire sobbed. "I don't know. I thought you didn't need me. You were always strong, always had a plan, always knew what to do. I thought you didn't need anyone." "Everyone needs someone, Claire," I said softly. "Even the strongest person needs to be loved." We sat in silence for a long time. Finally, Claire asked, "Can you forgive me?" I sighed. People don't change after just one apology, Claire. You might be sorry now, but that doesn't erase 30 years of being forgotten. Doesn't erase the pain I've had to endure. So what do you want me to do? She asked. I want you to live differently, I replied. I want you to see the people around you. Not just me, but everyone. I want you to learn how to give without expecting anything in return. I want you to become the person I once thought you could be. Claire nodded. I'll try, I promise. And about the wedding money, I continued. I'll return it. But not to you. I'll return it when this family acknowledges what they did to me. When Mom and Dad actually see me. When they apologize not just with words, but with actions. What about us? Claire asked. Can we go back? I looked into my sister's eyes. Someone I'd loved and protected all my life, but who had also hurt me deeply. I don't know, Claire, but I'm willing to try. As long as this time, we're real sisters. Not me as the giver and you as the taker. But two equal women who respect and care for each other. Claire stood up, and for the first time in years she hugged me, not because she needed something, but just because she wanted to. I love you, she whispered. I love you too, I replied. But this time, I also love myself. 2 weeks later, the entire family gathered at my parents' house. Claire had arranged this meeting, telling me she'd talked to Mom and Dad, and they were ready to listen. I wasn't sure what that meant, but I agreed to come. When I walked in, the atmosphere was tense. Dad sat in his favorite armchair, Mom on the sofa, and Claire standing beside them. They all looked at me as I entered. You came? Mom said, trying to smile. Yes, I replied, sitting in the chair across from them. What did you want to say? Dad spoke first. Emily, your mother and I have spent a lot of time thinking about what you said, and you were right. We haven't been fair to you. I waited, saying nothing. Mom continued, her voice trembling. I thought because you were strong, you didn't need as much attention as Claire. You always handled everything yourself, always succeeded, always made me proud. But I never told you that. I never showed you that I saw everything you did. Because you thought I didn't need to hear it, I said. Not a question, but a fact. Yes, Mom admitted. And that was my mistake. Everyone needs to hear that they're loved, that they matter. Dad spoke up. I'm sorry too, Emily. I treated you like a younger version of me. Independent, strong, didn't need help. But I forgot that even the strongest person needs family, and we weren't family to you. I felt tears flowing, though I tried to hold them back. 30 years, I said. I've waited 30 years to hear these words. I know, Mom said, tears also flowing. And I can't get that time back. But I can promise that from now on, things will be different. You won't be invisible anymore. How do I know that? I asked. How do I know this isn't just because everyone wants the wedding money back? Claire stepped forward. Because I canceled the wedding, Em. Not postponed, canceled. John and I broke up, and I've decided I need time to figure out who I am, to learn how to be a better person. So the wedding money doesn't matter anymore. You can keep it, or invest it, or do whatever you want with it. What matters is that this family wants you back. Not for the money, but because I miss you. Because Mom and Dad miss you. Because this family isn't complete without you. I looked at the three faces before me, the three people who'd hurt me most deeply, but also the three I loved most. And for the first time, I saw genuine remorse in their eyes. I need time, I said finally. I can't just forgive and forget after one conversation, but I'm willing to try. Willing to see if this family can truly change. Dad nodded. That's all I can ask for. The next month wasn't easy. There were moments when I saw old habits creeping in, when Mom unconsciously mentioned something Claire needed, or when Dad forgot to call me on the day of my big presentation at work. But this time, I didn't stay silent. I spoke up. Mom, you just spent 15 minutes talking about Claire's new job but didn't ask me about the project I just completed. Dad, yesterday you promised to call and ask how my presentation went, but you didn't. And miraculously, they listened. They apologized. They tried to fix it. Claire changed too. She started asking me about my life. Not just polite questions, but real ones. She wanted to know about the paintings I was creating, about the trip I was planning, about the man I'd started dating. And when she had problems, she didn't just call me to complain. She also asked if I was okay, if I needed help with anything. Gradually, I felt myself beginning to trust again. Not completely, and not immediately. But the broken pieces of our family relationship were being put back together, bit by bit. My 31st birthday came in November. I wasn't expecting anything. Actually, I'd planned to travel alone to the mountains to avoid any expectations or disappointments. But on my birthday morning, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find my parents standing there, holding a cake and a carefully wrapped gift. "Happy birthday to our daughter," Mom said, smiling brightly. I stood there stunned. You remembered?" "Of course we remembered," Mom said, stepping inside. "And not just remembered, we wanted to make this day special." They'd prepared breakfast for me, the things I liked, not the things Claire liked. The gift was a professional paint set I'd been eyeing for months but didn't want to buy for myself. "How did you know I wanted this?" I asked, opening the package with trembling hands. "Claire told us," Mom replied. "She did detective work, finding out what you like, what you need. She wanted to make sure we got it right this time." Later, Claire showed up with a group of my friends, people I'd introduced to her in recent months. They threw a small party in my apartment, with decorations I liked, music I loved, and people who actually cared about me. At the end of the evening, when everyone had left, Claire stayed to help me clean up. "Thank you," I said. "For today. For everything." "No need to thank me," Claire replied. "This is what sisters should do for each other. And I'm sorry it took me 30 years to figure that out." We hugged, and this time it felt different. It felt real. 6 months after the wedding incident, I sat on my apartment balcony, looking out at the city at night. My phone buzzed. A text from Claire. "Claire, can you meet me this weekend? I want to introduce you to someone. And no, not a future husband, just a friend I think you'll like." I smiled and replied, "Me. Sure. But this time you have to ask about my life before talking about yours." "Claire. Deal. And I love you. Not because of what you do for me, but just because you're you." I looked at that message for a long time, feeling warmth spread through my chest. It didn't erase 30 years of pain. It didn't make everything perfect. But it was a start. I looked at the wedding fund, the money still sitting in my account. I'd decided what to do with it. Not return it to the family, and not keep it as a symbol of power. Instead, I would use it to open a small art studio, a place where I could teach painting to people who wanted to find their voice, just like I'd found mine. Because that was the biggest lesson I'd learned. You can't wait for others to recognize your value. You have to recognize it yourself. You have to stand up and say, "I deserve to be loved. I deserve to be seen. And I will no longer be invisible." My family was learning how to love me the right way. But more importantly, I'd learned how to love myself. And that was the kind of freedom no one could take away. I stood up from the balcony, walked inside, and started sketching plans for my studio. My new life was beginning. Not as a forgotten daughter, not as a disrespected sister, but as Emily Rivers, a woman who knew her worth and wasn't afraid to claim it. and that was the most perfect ending I could hope for.